Hey you guys, this is Nathan, Photoscape X, beginner to expert. Let's get into this. Alright, so about 8 years ago, I came across an amazing photo editing software called Photoscape X. At the time, they had something like the Photoscape X 3.7, and it was a awesome piece of software. But then recently they've made Photoscape X, and I have been making videos on Photoscape X for the past year now, and I have made over 45 videos on Photoscape X showing some features or comparing it to other software or showing different tips, tricks, or updates that have come out over the past year. That is why for 2021 I wanted to make an updated video on Photoscape X, and we're going to get into that right now. Also, all the timestamps of each of the features and each of the tabs and things I'll be working on, that will be timestamped down in the description of this video. Also, feel free to like and to comment down below if you appreciate this content. It would mean the world to me if you guys would help this video blow up. Alright, so let's begin. Where you get Photoscape X, and the link is also down below, you can download it for Windows and for Mac. When you get it downloaded and installed onto your computer, you'll be met with this screen. This is the kind of home screen right here, and you can look at the different effects, the different tutorials of how to maybe liquefy or use the spot healing brush, or maybe do some HDR or some straightening of your photo, or how to crop your photo in. But what's nice is that each of these tools and each of these tutorials, if you click in there, Photoscape X has put together a video that shows you how to use that tool. Unfortunately, it doesn't have audio, but it's still easy to look at and just walk through what is being how this tool is being used in the software. So we have that, which is super helpful. And then if you are to go into the viewer, we're just going to work through each of the panels, each of the tabs in Photoscape X, and I'm going to show you guys the features and tools. So we'll begin with the viewer. All right, so you're in the viewer, and this is kind of the workspace to find the image, so then you can take it either into the editor or into the cutout tool or into batch, collage, even creating a GIF. We're going to look at that as well, but this is where you're able to find your images, but also rate them and sort them. So what we can do in here, you're able to have folders. This will show folders on your computer, or you can have favorite folders, or you can even hit both. So you have what you have favorited up that top right hand or top left hand corner. So here I have desktop, documents, and these are just quick things that I'm able to click on and able to get to each of the images that are in there. And what's awesome is that, let's say I find an image that I really like, but there are just so many images in this folder. I can click on an image like this one right here of this tripod, and I can go over here and I can flag it. Down here at the bottom right hand side, I can hit flag, and I can select that to be a flagged image. Therefore, if I search later on and I say, oh yeah, just show me the flagged images, it's the only one that comes up. Also, one thing that's nice is if I right click on the image, or even down here at the corner, I can go and put a star rating on the image, so anything from 0 to 5 stars. And what's nice is by flagging and putting these star ratings on, later on if I were to use Photoshop or a different software, it would be able to see that metadata for those star ratings and things like that, which is extremely helpful. So you can star that, you can see that there at the bottom left of that image. That's really cool to be able to go and find just the specific images that you want by rating them. One thing that's also nice is if you go into custom, you can also just have so much freedom to say, oh, I just want PNG images, or I just want photos, or I just want JPEG images. Or you can do things like images that are square, or a portrait, or a landscape. So oh yes, that's the one portrait image that's in this folder, and you're able to find that extremely quickly because you're taking the time to just go through those filters in the viewer. One thing that's also nice here, you guys, is if we go and we open up an image in the viewer, you get this huge full frame image. You could set it up where you show this image and then the one that's next in the folder, but you usually will have it set like this. You can just zoom in, and that'll be by holding down Control and zooming in. You can see the full extent of the image, things like that. There's also other images where you can go and see the full screen effect of it. What you're seeing at the very bottom of the image. One, you can scrub between different images, but you can see the image name, you can see the size, you can see when it was taken, that it was taken with a Google Pixel 3 XL at a f1.8 ISO 58 and a 4.4 millimeter. And you're also able to click on the image and you're able to pull down even more to see, oh yeah, the software was HDR plus, oh yes, the GPS latitude and longitude, all this different stuff. It's really cool that you have all that available to you, and you can even go in and edit the metadata as well, where you can change the name or an image description, all sorts of things if you want to get in and do a lot with categorizing your images. So that's really neat that it has all that. Next, you're able to do just some simple edits, like you're able to do a rotation right in there if you wanted to see it rotated. If it was in a if you shot a portrait but it came out as landscape, or there was some kind of mix up, you could do that and still see what the image looks like. So that is the viewer in a nutshell. And if there's anything else, we're going to come back to it later on in the video. But now we're going to hop into the editor. So we're going to select this image, and then over here you have the edit button down here at the bottom right hand side. You can click that, send you straight to the editor, or you can grab the image, just click on it and drag it up and drag it either to the editor, cutout, or like whatever tab you want to slide it to, and you can just let go and it'll be right there. That's awesome and very helpful. Next, one thing that I want to share here with you guys, and I'm going to remove my webcam real quick. All right, is that here at the bottom left hand side in the viewer, you had it where it showed different images and different images over there, and you're also able to, here at the bottom left hand side, there's a grid button. When you click that, you can have this teal border around your image. That can be really helpful to be able to see where the border of your image is if you're adding different images or overlays or things like that. It can be helpful. Just wanted to share that with you guys, but that's also where you can get the zoom and all that. Okay, so now to jump into just the editor here, what we're going to do is just walk through each of the tabs, and if you have any questions on them, feel free to comment down below, and I will do my best to be able to help you with that, or make an updated video to share a little bit more if there's a specific feature or something that I didn't go into a huge amount of detail on. All right, so let's begin. We are in the editor, and over here we have several different tabs. You have the favorites tab. This is if you were to go to edit and you wanted to look at something like, oh, I wanted to always have access to this certain tool very quickly. And you're going to see in a minute why it's going to be helpful. Because let's say, hey, I use Sharpen all the time. I just use Sharpen all the time. I add that to favorites and then I hit OK. And what's nice is then you can click favorites and you can go down here and click Sharpen, and you'll have that tool right there. So if you have one you use a ton, it's really helpful. Then you have macros, and you're able to go down to either play or save, but unfortunately those are pro features that are only available in the pro model. The pro model is one where you get a lot of different tools and features, but it's a $40 one-time purchase, so you'll have to decide whether you want that or not. Nonetheless, in this video we're looking at the free model, and if you want to look at the paid model, I have a whole video walking through the tools and features there. Okay, next we have rotation. We've kind of already shown that earlier, but yeah, you can go 9 degrees, things like that. You have rotate, which allows you to rotate the image, and this is interesting because you can have no background, or you can make a pattern background, things like that. That can be helpful, but remember, this is for rotating the image in a major way, not necessarily straightening, because next to it is the straighten tool. That's where you're able to turn and straighten, and there's checkboxes, and you should look really carefully when you're using Photoscape X to see if there are anything like, oh, I want to maintain the original size, or maybe there's a mask tool or an effect slider that you'll want to take a closer look at when you're moving things around. But straighten is great because it has all these lines, so you're able to see, okay, yes, looks like it's straight up and down. Hit apply and you're all set to go. Next you have horizontal flip. That'll flip from one side to the other, and then you have vertical flip, which will flip it upside down, so that's really nice as well. And then you have resize. Resize is basically if your image is too large to be able to send to someone, or if it's too large for the project that you're working on, you can resize it. You can also resize it larger, but you're not really going to get much benefit to that because it will become more pixelated at those larger sizes. But nonetheless, if you were trying to send this image across and you said, hey, I just want to send it and make sure there's no problem with the size, oh, I can go 500 by 500, and then the image will not be as in high of quality because there's less pixels there, but it will be easier to send, whether in an email or in a certain file or things. And sometimes for specific things like YouTube thumbnails, or maybe things you might add to a website or to an Etsy store, things like that, you might need to have very specific image sizes, and that's where resize is very helpful. Next you have crop. Crop is great, and I believe it is one of the better ways for you to be able to crop images. So you have perspective crop and you have circle crop. Those are kind of neat to be able to do, but most of the time you'll just be cropping it normally, so you can go down and select your size that you want. So you can do 1:1 square, and that's going to be, you know, pretty straightforward, like if you were doing some kind of a profile photo or something like that. Real simple, just a left click and then you just drag it across. Very nicely done. All right. One thing that is also helpful here is if you want to do a custom range, you can do it your custom range for your width and height, or you can do it based on size. You know, so if there's something where it's like, hey, I'm going to do 21 by 9, you can hit that, and then you can make that kind of banner shape that you might be looking for. So that's crop, very helpful. Next we have miniature. What's interesting about this is this helps you to kind of give some kind of a focused effect on what is in focus, what gets blurred out, and how the vignetting looks. But that's something we're able to just blur and get that in there, so you can make it a linear line. If you're wanting that, you can make something where it starts blurring after a certain point. You can rotate it, things there. But yeah, miniature is one that you might not use a ton, but it's interesting that they put it in the main screen. But yeah, if you were trying to blur something out and say, oh, I want this side of the image blurred so I can add text and it might look better or something like that, you could definitely look into adding that. Next, you have magic color. This is your one button fix for your images. This is kind of their auto, and you're able to look and see, okay, did I like the original or do I like it before? And you can hit compare, and you can still slide the sliders to increase it, the strength, or decrease the strength. Both very useful there. All right, next you have bloom. Bloom is kind of your glow effect, your Napoleon Dynamite. Hey, I can make some really awesome photos, make you look super amazing, your glow photos. But, you know, it's for what you want to use it for. You can decrease levels or the blur or different things. You can hit mask, and I think I'll cover mask right now. Basically, mask is where you're able to select just a certain point or points of an image and have the effect only take place in that area. So I can go in here and I say, hey, I only want my face to get this effect. I go in and I am just clicking around in here to select just my face, and I can zoom in as close as I want to get that. And then there's also a subtract tool if I wanted to subtract, if I went a little too far on certain sizes. But then when I zoom out, it applied that glow effect, and I can hit compare. Before, after. I can show you how that mask is just affecting that portion of the image. It's nice that you have things like show mask where you can see what is selected, and you can invert the mask as well. So if you change your mind, you say, hey, I want to do everything else except for the face, you can do that as well. And you can see the before, after. Very nice. Also, there's a few presets in here if you wanted it to be super intense, low, or medium. So that's what masks are, and that is the bloom effect. HDR is going to be similar to like that auto color, but it's going to take a different approach. And you have like what is before and what is after, before, after. And then there's also presets here where you could change some of the different settings here. And yeah, if you put them at 100, it gets pretty insane. But if you go and hit something that might be a bit more reasonable, depending on what type of image you're taking, you could end up with something that you really like. So that really good there. You have next the quick menu. This is a kind of overwhelming at first when you click on the quick menu. I made an entire video on the quick menu, but basically this is something where if you knew what you wanted to do very quickly, you could dial this in, where you say, oh, I want to resize it to 800. Oh, I want to do an auto color. I want it to be high. Oh, I want to add blur to this image. I want to sharpen this image. Different things like that. Feel free to play around with it, but it definitely can be overwhelming. All right, so then you have things like grayscale, or you have sepia. You have some other different effects in here that are just real quick and easy. If you just know, oh yeah, I'm going to go black and white with this image, you can do that, and it doesn't take too long. Next down here, you have the transform, effect, and adjustments. So you have the adjustments where if you look down here, there are just tons of adjustments. You have color fill, you have levels, you have blur, you have add noise. Then you also have effects where you have, jitter, frosted glass, illusion, twirl, zoom, different things there. And then down here into transformations, you have offset, you have reflections, you have stretch, you have text mask. There are so many different things, that you can do, and it's really neat. And there are videos where I dive into each and every one of these tools, these adjustments, effects, transformations. And what's really nice is that as soon as you start learning some of those, it can be a real help because you have more tools in your tool belt when you're editing an image to say, oh, I know how to make that, perspective shift, where I can say, oh yes, I'm going to start shifting it so it's turned or curved or things like that. And then I'm going to have a transparent background, and I'll be able to add that in to an array of photos. But I'm not going to cover those in super detail today because I feel that I have made other videos where I cover like all the adjustments and different things like that. So feel free to check out those videos if you want more of that. But what I wanted to leave with you guys in this editor is that when you go over to favorites, you can hit edit. And if there's something in here, like in the adjust tab, and you really like it, you can say, oh, I want this one. Or I really want this radial blur. Go and select those so it's easier to find them later, because sometimes it's tough to go and hit adjust and then go down and try to find your images. It can really speed up your workflow. So you have that there. One other thing, you have the undo and the redo buttons. You have the compare to original, and you have the compare to like your last change. You have open, you have save, and then you have more. One thing that I would encourage here is when you hit save, go into save as, and that means you're not going to be saving over the original image, and you can save that out. You also, when you are saving out, you can save it as a JPEG, which is what you would normally save it as, but if there is transparency in the image, save it out as a PNG. That'll save that transparency in your image. So those are the two main file types that you'll save your images out as. But it's also nice because they have a save project. If you made a bunch of different edits and changes, but you weren't sure if that was your final, final decision, that you might go back and change your mind later, you can go here to Save Project. And in Save Project, you can save your image out, where when you come back to it, you can go back and still undo those changes, or you can look at some of the different elements in your image and you can change it later. This will be super helpful when you like add text to an image or things like that. Let me demonstrate that for you guys really quickly. All right, so I have in here, in my, I gotta go all the way to my new folder. Here we go. All right, so let's say I have a YouTube thumbnail or something and I open up the project folder in the editor. There are going to be elements in this image, which, you have the background, which is an image. You have this text, and then you have these images of these different software icons, and you have myself. And the thing is, because I have saved it out as an image, I can still move and adjust where these different objects are in my image and be able to have full control over that. Even though I had to save, I've shut my computer off, all this different stuff, because it's saved as a file that is a project file, I'm able to go back and continue to make changes as many times as I want forever. And I can, email that file over and I could work on it on another computer as long as it has Photoscape X. That's why it's incredibly important to remember saving as a project file. Very, very helpful here. All right, so that was the editor, and that's going to be where you live in Photoscape X. That's what you're going to spend a huge amount of your time doing. But let's go over here to the cutout tool. So the cutout tool will be, whoops, sorry guys, a little jumping ahead of myself. The color tool is actually next. So you have edit, then you have color. This is where you can do the auto color or the HDR changes and things, but you're also able to go in and do much more finer tuning, where you're able to adjust like the brightness or the darkening of the image, the vibrance, the clarity. You're able to change the contrast, the saturation, the temperature, the tint even. You can change a lot of these different things in here, and it's just learning the different sliders and how they work. I made an entire video on color, the color tab, and that can be incredibly helpful. It's also nice that there is a mask tool as well, so you can say, oh, I just want this car to be selected, or a certain portion of the car to be selected, and then have the effect take place on there, but not other parts of the image. So the color tool, very useful. And it's also very important to hit that compare to look at what it was before to what it is after. When you hit apply, then that applies, and then you go back to just the normal editor. But that's how you're able to get your colors just to where you want it to be. If you wanted to have something quicker or something that is preset for yourself, you have the film effect. I just made a video on the film effect and it came out really well. But in that video, I looked through, how do these film effects work? How do they get applied to your image? Because you can, select one, but then you can change the amount of how strong you want that film effect to look in your image. You also have things like two-tone. You have different looks. Once again, more filters, more things like you might see on Instagram or something like that. You have different ways to make your photo look old or dated. You can add different ways to distort the image, like putting dirt or having a certain type of texture, or even a bunch of scratches and a bunch of other things as well. And you can change up like the amount or the strength or even the color of this stuff. And sometimes it can look really, really cool depending on how you use that the image and what you're doing with the project. So it's a great tab to have, that film tab, but it's one where I wish there was a way that you could favorite like your favorite effects. Unfortunately, you're not able to, and there's not a way to make it like a favorited thing in this favorites tab. That's just in for the editor tab. So little bit of a downer, but there's still so much there that you can do. One thing that I really enjoy using as well is the light tab. And in the light tab, you can add in these different light flares and effects. And it's just really nice because even when you click that, some of these different effects, there's just ways you're able to continue to adjust them. So you can change the amount once again. You can change the scale, which is going to change like the sizing of different things. And you can even rotate that effect if you wanted it to be on just like a certain side or a certain corner, things like that. Then you have light leak. This is cool because you can, select something like here's this blue, and that's pretty cool right there. But then you can go down here to the tint and say, oh, I want the tint to actually be more of a red. So there's actually a bit of red in there now. And then you can move and adjust where this light is coming in from. And I think that's really cool to be able to add in different parts of the image. So you say, oh wow, it looked pretty plain and stuff, but then I gave this corner some edge, and it might give a certain look or a feel that you want to add into your image. You also have things like bokeh, just adding in these like dots and these swirls, lens flare, so you can look like, oh man, yeah, you can definitely see the sun is just super harsh on there. You have light. If you wanted to make yourself, the center of attention, you can do that. And what's crazy is that you have like the angle that you can shape it at, the aspect ratio to make it like super zoomed shot on for like one thing, but then still change up the colors, change up the look and the design of it. It's really crazy all you can do with the light effects. Probably deserves its own video, but pretty cool. And then you also have different things like these, nature, like little particles in the air type of a thing. I use this for like editing some snowflake photos of mine. Looks pretty cool to give a certain look and a feel to an image. So that's the light tab. Then you have the frames. Frames are great. I use these all the time. My mom, she absolutely loves this stuff. She uses Photoscape X as well. But yeah, you can add a frame to it if that's what you're real interested in. And then there's also shapes if you want to export it just as a certain shape. And one thing that's nice is you can do it transparent, so then it can just be that icon. And it looks pretty good. To be able to have so many options, and this is just the free version. There's still just a ton of different options you're able to have. And of course, if you get the pro model, you can get all these other ones as well. This Mickey Mouse face or this Batman face, some of the crazy ones that you might never use, but someone's thought of them. And it's kind of neat to have so many options. In the frames tab, one thing that I use a ton is borders, because basically I can go over here and say, sweet, I got a border around here. That means the background is going to be transparent. I can hit apply to this, and then I can hit save as, and I'm going to save it out as a PNG image, and then I can show it to you guys real quick. But basically, you can save that out, and then in your folder, like you go back to your viewer here, and you see this image, and it's going to have that transparent on the back, and you can have a shadow. You can do different things with it. But it's awesome because I use that a ton for the different images that I make YouTube thumbnails for or banners for, because it's so nice to be able to put that in, even for like videos and things. Really helpful. So I use that border effect all the time. Usually I use the stroke. I put it at 10 just because I don't want it to have such a huge border on it. But that's kind of just the way I do it there. You can put patterns on your backgrounds, all sorts of things. So very nice. Definitely use the frames, especially the borders for sure. Okay, so we have that stuff taken care of with the frames. Then we go over here to insert. Now this is an interesting one. Don't get confused. Basically, you go to the insert tab, you click on that, and it pops out. I believe it's 6 different things in here, and there's a bit more that gets put in, but this is kind of a special tab in here, so definitely learn it the best you can. So what you do is you click on insert, it slides out all this stuff, and what you're able to do is things like stickers. You're able to add a sticker to your image. You're able to add in your own image. So let's say you have just a image that you're working on, and you say, hey, I just want to add this image in here. You can drop any kind of image into your photo that you want, and you still have a little bit of editing privileges. Even if it is just another image in your photo, you can still add like a drop shadow to it. You can still add an overlay. You can still transform it, different things like that. But it's really nice that you have that ability. I use the image adding all the time for thumbnails and things. Next, you have the text effect, and this is such a huge effect in here. Also, if you are wondering about this select tool and things down here, basically it's going to always be on select, but if you wanted to add like an arrow or draw like a square or a filled in square, things like that, you can add that stuff in, add different patterns. Patterns are just insane, you guys. Check this stuff out. You can add all these different patterns. You can rotate the dots and the size, the changing the axis, all this stuff. Crazy, all the things you can do in that pattern setup there. And what's nice is they put so many features, all that stuff, into the text effect. And in the text effect, you can go into here. I already have one that I've done and used so many times. Basically, it has an outline, it's using a gradient, and it just takes a little time to learn this type of stuff. But let's just go to like super basic, and then we'll make something cool. So we're going to let's just change it to black real quick. So you have the text box up here. This is where you can write whatever you want in there. You can write that stuff in. You're also able to go to like symbols and things and add certain symbols. You can also just do a lot in here because there's just so many that you have access to. So like if you wanted a check mark or something like that, you can do that type of stuff. You can, of course, hit the delete button. That'll delete it. Or you can hit the duplicate button. That's really cool where you're able to duplicate it to 2. So if you have one down here, one up here, you can make sure that the size stays the same, that maybe the font stays the same and things like that. Let me see this, guys. Okay. But when you get into doing more of the technical or professional type stuff, what you would do is, okay, yeah, you want to be able to go into the fonts. You can put whatever font in you want. You can download and install fonts. I made a video on that because there was a question there. But yes, you can download and install fonts as well to add in what you want. You also can hit bold, italicize, underline. There's just your normal like WordPress type of just text changes you're able to do. You're also able to adjust the angle with this circle. You can change it so it's at a certain angle, whatever you'd like. There's also a way you can change it right on here, which is helpful as well. You're able to change the spacing by this More tab, and you can space it out wider, or you can with the line spacing for your second line. Whoopsie. 1 second. So if you went with Collins, you can change, the amount of the line spacing for that second line. Okay, so you have all that stuff, but let's say it's kind of harsh on your background or things like that. You're having trouble with it. You can always add an outline to your image. Let me change this to white because it'll be easier to see now. You can put that in, maybe change that line spacing a little bit to get it closer together. You can kind of see how that works there. And then you can go into here with stuff like long shadow, which is pretty crazy. Kind of gives you that cartoon or that manga style text, really dramatic. You can go with like a drop shadow to give you some separation between your foreground and background. You have your outer glow. Change that to whatever color you want. You can also do that with the shadow as well, but you can do that. So that's really cool. Then you have overlay and mask. Basically, if you want to add in some scratches or, and let's just make that black. You can change it in to give it some different color or different stuff in there. So you could say, hey, that looks really cool. And then I want my text to be, red or green or whatever, but you can still add that texture in there, which kind of gives an interesting look than just plain text. So I'm really glad they add this overlay and masks. Really neat. And transform is where you're able to adjust the shifting and the angles, the different stuff. I made an entire video on text, and I think it's one of the best features in Photoscape X, and one of the reasons why I continue to use it for all my photos. as far as a lot of my photos, but then also just all of my YouTube thumbnails is just the best workflow that I've found. Even though I have access to Photoshop and Lightroom, all my photos, all my thumbnails are made in Photoscape X. Okay, so we did text. Text is pretty nice. And oh yes, if you were wondering how do you do that kind of gradient effect, you can go over here to gradients and you can select your colors. You can select the style, things like that. But definitely can do a lot in there. Okay, so got text out of the way. We have kind of like, once again, kind of like a sticker, but you can add different shapes in here with different patterns or colors or gradients, things like that. All right, very nice. Then you have magnifier. This is kind of neat because you can move the magnifying glass wherever you want it. And then the center point, you can go and select this wherever you want, like on the headlight, if you wanted that to be like a main thing, a main focus. Nice little feature there as well. Then you have also filter. So let's say if this was a non-released image, you could hit filter, you could hit blur, and you could blur out just the portion of the image, and you can change how much it's blurred and all of that. So very nicely done there. Okay, and then next we have the tools tab. There you're able to yes, so in the tools tab, this is where you're able to continue to do just more. Oh yes, by the way, if you are in like the tools tab or the edit tab or something, and you're like, why can't I move my inserted item? Go back to the insert tab because it is kind of a special thing to be in. So yes, you can go and do that. On the side here, I can grab a different image or something. All right, whoopsie. That just kind of inserted it because I was in the insert tab. So you got to be in something else if you're wanting to just drop a new image in there. So there's our new image. If we go over here to tools, we can go to draw. Draw allows you to, like I said, draw on the image. What's nice is that there are different kind of styles to it. Hold on, I think I just got it. Wow, not bad. Just freehanding that. But you're able to do different brushes and different strengths, different aspect ratios or angles of things. So you can really do a lot with making your own type of brush if you did want to do more with it. So that's really nice to be able to have. You can change the colors, the opacity, things like that. You can even go back and subtract if you messed up a little bit. Subtracting a little bit there. The draw tool can really save you sometimes if you messed up an area of the image. You want to do a little fix there. Scatter is super fun because you're able to just scatter colors and dots and hearts all over your images and things. And yeah, it's really nice to be able to have the ability to just put random stuff in, because usually if I was going to insert stuff in, it's going to look very intentional, where this, it can look just completely random. And it's like, hey, that's really nice because you can change the sizes and things like that. Can just make your image just look so much better. Love the scatter tool. Really happy that they have that in there. You have paint, eraser, adjust color, blur, and in this tools tab, what you need to think about is that this is looking at really just making these adjustments to specific areas of the image. When you're in the edit tab, majority of the time you're editing the entire image. You're checking or adjusting the levels for the entirety of the image, where in tools you are going and saying, hey, I want to just fix this one little portion of the image. A perfect example of that would be like the spot heal tool, free tool, one that is really useful. But basically, if you were to zoom in on a certain part of an image, you said, oh man, I don't like this certain part of the image, you can, fix it. So like, let's say you didn't like these rocks and stuff at the edge of your image. You go here and select all of that in there. And then it's gonna take a little time to process it. And sure enough, it has gone through and edited that stuff out. And sometimes it works extremely well, sometimes not so great, but in many cases, it does a convincing job at removing what you didn't want in the image. So we had that before, now we have that. Is it perfect? Not exactly. But the better examples would be an image kind of like this one, where it's like, oh, let's say I wanted to take the branding off of this shirt. I can go in here and select just this shirt here, just that portion of the shirt, and get that removed, and it looks phenomenal. The difference between what it was to having it taken off, just super clean, really well done there. Spot healing tool, it's really nice. There's liquefy, there's mix brush, sharpen. Like this sharpen, it's wanting you to really select just the face. That's where it wants you to select, and or wherever you want it to, and you can have those different, change. Oh, that strength is way too hard there. Oh, the hardness there. You can move this stuff around, but it's really looking at just very specific portions of the image, not the entirety like it is in the edit. So hopefully that helps, gives a little bit of separation there. And once again, if there's any tools or things you want me to cover in detail more, definitely just let me know. All right, but that is the entire editor tab. It's really, really nice to be able to have all that stuff in. One thing that I would encourage you guys to do is, just to remember to save out your images as project files. Those are super helpful if you are thinking at any point, hey, I might want to go back, because like here is a thumbnail that I made well over a year ago, and I look back and I'm like, okay, so I got the image there, but I have the eating healthy, I have my picture down here, but all this stuff is still movable, it's changeable. So when I go and I say, oh, I just made a new video, and maybe it's a video on, oh, let's see, let's say it's an image. Oh, here we go. Let me back this out, drop this one in. Let's say my brother and I were doing, a new photo challenge. We did this a few weeks ago, but I can change out the images. I can change out the text. I can move myself around in the image. It's just super helpful, because let's say in the future we did something like we did a photo review. Let's say, oh, I want to change it to photo challenge or a photo this, or whatever you want it to be. You're able to do that, and saves you so much time. So that's the editor in there. The cutout tool is super great. Basically what you're able to do is, let's go back to an image here. Let's do we'll do this one. This one will be fun. So you have myself in this image. If you wanted to cut just myself out of this image, you can do that. And using the cutout tool, you're able to basically, there are different tools like the magic erase, lasso, brush, and you're able to go through, cut all this stuff out. I've made videos in the past about how to cut or remove backgrounds, things like that. So I'll definitely link those down below if you want an in-depth, detailed look at how to remove the background of an image. But what's nice is you're able to select just what you want to select. You don't have to, say, oh, I've got to select, just certain parts, or oh, I have to just do what might come out of an automatic background remover. You have full control over whatever you want to remove out of the image. But I'm just doing this here to kind of show you a little bit of a taste of it, but definitely watch one of my other videos to get the full effect of how to make this happen. You can go and hit the cutout tool, go into like a PNG, save that out, or you could also right click on here and you could copy it to clipboard, and there you could go into a different image or into like the same image, and you can paste it in. So let's say I don't want this picture of myself anymore, I wanted that new picture I got of myself. I can go and hit paste, and I can paste that guy right in there, and it looks really good. One thing to note is that if you make a mistake, like in this case, there's too much of my hair that's cut off, I can go back and fix that, and then I can paste it back over. So it's really nice to be able to have that cutout tool. Definitely watch a full video on it, but it's really helpful. Batch, that's something where if you had two images that you wanted to edit, the exact same way, you can add a certain crop to all of those images into all the different filters or colors or inserts, things like that. One reason why you would use this is recently my mother-in-law, she has a Etsy store, and she went and took a bunch of photos, all of her hats and her knitted like gloves or scarves or hats and all this different stuff. She does an incredible job with it, but she took a bunch of photos. Many of them are very similar. So if I find a way that I'm like, wow, I really like how I edited it this one, I want to edit all the rest of them this way, because many of them are very similar, shot in the same location. I could go and do that, and maybe I can get a real quick look for what all these images would look like. So that's batch to do them really quickly. Collage, that's where you can drop, one image in or then a second image in. Over here, you can select, what the background is going to be, the borders. You can change the size of the borders, things like that. You can change it to how many images. So if you wanted to add 6 images in, you can do that. You can do all those different things, and it's pretty crazy to see what you're able to do, because you can then go and say, oh, I want to switch this one out, I want to swap that one out. Very nice if you're making collages. The combine tool is basically if you had one image here and you had a second image here and you wanted to merge them together so they're just one specific image, you can do that, and I think it's really nice. If you are taking from one part of an image and putting it into another part of an image, it's really helpful to be able to combine images together. The Create GIF tab, I just made a video on this. Really helpful to be able to change up like the times of how long it takes for that GIF to play, maybe doing some slight adjustments to it. The GIF tab isn't perfect, but it does have some good features in there. Definitely check out the video there if you want to know more about how to make GIFs. All right, then you have print. Print is fairly straightforward. If you understand how to print print things, this is very similar as well. You can always save out and print it just from the file itself or from a lot of different things. I worked for a long time in a place where I was doing a lot of printing and things, and it definitely is a bit challenging, but over time you'll learn how this stuff works and all that. So definitely don't get discouraged if the image or if the printing is a little challenging. Just take your time, figure out your margins, your spacings, and things like that. And when you're ready to hit print, you run over here to print and you select the printer, the sizes, things like that. And just make sure you have it on the correct settings. Hopping into the preferences and making sure you have color selected or black and white or a draft can be super helpful too if you're not really sure. If you got it all set it as draft so you don't waste too much ink as you're printing off your test runs. So very nice there. But and then let's see, a fit, stretch, DPI, auto rotate. If you do have any trouble with it, just remember that if you go back to the editor, remember to crop your images to what you want them to be before you take it over to this print, because sometimes the print can be limited on where you're able to move and shift things around, just because printing can be kind of a rough thing. So just remember cropping. You can crop that and just save as and things like that. So then jumping over to the tools tab, this is basically where you can grab a screenshot. If you ever have any questions, feel free to hit me up, send me an email, or check it out on our Photoscape X Facebook page. There's a Facebook page where you can ask questions and I'm on there. But you can go and hit a screenshot and say, oh man, I had trouble because I didn't know what was going on here with this part of the image or something. And you're able to go back and say, oh yeah, I'm going to figure that out. Let me just make sure we got that. Let me make sure we get this screenshot in there. Did it save out somewhere? Capture full screenshot. So we got that. And then let's see. I forget where it actually saves to. Does it save to just photos? Photos, desktop. Where does that screenshot save to? Honestly, in my personal opinion, what I do is I just hit Control Alt print screen. It's on there to begin with. Oh, actually, it's right here. My bad. It saved it right over here. And you have that image right there. So if you didn't have let me close out of this stuff because that's silly that I did it that way. I can close out of this, hit screen capture. It took it of that. Interesting. Capture window. No. Go back to No, boy, kind of silly. Nonetheless, it's nice to be able to have some different tools in there. Sometimes they're a little finicky. Color picker is great because you can just go and select any portion of any part of your screen. Just select that color, and you can copy it in. Pretty nice. And then you have rename. This is helpful if you're trying to rename files to a certain thing, or when you save out, you want it to specifically be like, oh, Nathan Collins photo, blah, 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 blah. You can do those things. One other thing in here for you guys. Let's see. One other thing that I'd want to share with you guys is over here into the settings tab. Click on settings. If you ever have any issues with it, where like I always keep my theme on dark, but if you want light theme, you can do that. If you want to change how it works in certain ways, you can do that. Like open the viewer in full screen all the time. Open the editor tab. Use the GPU for graphic processing. Change the matte color of stuff, or to like reset your thumbnails or things like that. There's stuff there, but it also is helpful because you're able to see what version you're on. I am on the most recent version, which is 4.1.1, and I think it's really helpful, really useful. But yeah, you guys, Photoscape X is an awesome tool. You can do so much with it, and it's by learning all these different tools and features that you're able to really dive in. Photoscape X is, I believe, the best free photo editing software for anyone who is looking to get into photography and into editing. And I think that for many people, they look at Photoshop or Affinity or these other paid options, and I think, oh, I got to get that to do solid work. Yeah, it's a misnomer. Photoscape X and others work extremely well if you're willing to put in the time to learn these. These are very simple to use, especially for Photoscape X. And in my personal opinion, I feel that Photoscape X is awesome. I feel that if you're wanting to do professional work down the road, look to transfer over to Photoshop, because that'll be the easiest workflow for a professional. And if you are someone who's professional and strictly or like really heavily going into photo editing or graphic design, Photoshop and Lightroom along with the Adobe Suite is where you want to go. But if you're doing it just for yourself or just for a hobby, Photoscape X is great. Photoscape X Pro is amazing. And if you wanted to go with another paid option, I would recommend taking a look at Affinity as well if you're looking to pay somewhere around like $50 for Affinity Photo. Nonetheless, you guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Photoscape X, the beginner to expert guide for 2021 and beyond. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.